Yeah, but that was so awesome, hey?
Yeah, man, I freaking dig that, man. That was, mate, like, they were very, very funny and, like,
Yeah,
chilled, and, we didn't have to ask a lot of questions. It was pretty relaxed,
yeah.
and they spoke, like, about being human, and I loved that. I was so kiff that.
There was so much of it though, you know what I mean? I was like, these are really line up with what we're trying to say.
Yeah, but it was
Um,
so good. Like, I'm so glad that we didn't just talk proprioceptive
oh yeah.
stuff, and like they went totally into like the human side of it. It was so perfect, eh?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. But yeah, they're really inspiring guys. They really,
Yes, it's
I
such
dig.
nice oaks, eh?
Yeah, such nice oaks. Thanks, and you?
And the fact,
Yeah, we're doing all right. Look at those.
Look at the background.
Branding up.
Eh? Can you
Showing
see?
off.
Can
Yeah,
you see?
branded.
Yeah.
you're on the tea there, China.
No, but coffee, man.
China.
China plate, my mate.
No, where we come from, like in Joburg, all guys call each other China. Like
Yeah,
it's like
I played rugby with the Safa lad and everyone was China and you were like, what's he on about?
All right, should we rock and roll?
So just so you know, we always have this thing: 1, 2, 3, and then record. Not 1, 2, 3. Not on 3. So on 1, 2, 3, record.
It's a okay.
All right,
Are everyone
you guys
ready?
ready to roll?
Okay.
Yep.
1, 2, 3, record.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. But I also feel like I'm like I was searching for verbs, you know what I mean? And like I was just going,
Yeah.
you guys are really motivational, inspirational, and no, you're really motivational, inspirational. I was just
But
like, come on, Gareth.
it was good, man. Like the worst case scenario is that we cut one of the verbs out, and
Yeah. So
no, I'm kidding, man. I thought it was cute, man. I really like it.
yeah, cool, man.
Well done,
Yeah.
man.
You too, buddy. Well done, man.
Gareth, my boy, how's it going, my man?
Great, guys. How's it going, Jana? How are you, buddy?
Yes, it's pretty good, man. And how about you? How's your day been?
Yeah, it's been awesome, bud. How about yours, man?
Pretty good. Not too bad at all. Hey, thanks. So, everybody, this is the part of the show where Gareth and I like to reflect on the chat that we had with our guest. And we had a really interesting chat with Dave and Tim from the School of Calisthenics. And, one of the things that we really, really enjoyed chatting about was the idea of body weight training in general. And obviously, it's quite a trendy thing at the moment. And we just found it such an interesting topic for many reasons. There's a lot of benefits health-wise. You can do it anywhere. And it's free. So, Gareth, what do you reckon? What did you think about that?
Yeah, I thought it was a really, really cool chat. I think people will hopefully find it very inspiring. And one of the messages that I picked up was just like that, there's no excuse almost to not train, because when it comes to calisthenics, it's available for everybody. It doesn't matter if you're rich, if you're poor, if you're a guy, if you're a girl. You don't need access to a gym, etc. It's literally available to anybody, literally using your body strength. And it's such a functional type of training as well that helps people in their day-to-day lives. And also people that even want to look good, if you don't have to be, say, a bodybuilder or whatever. You can literally practice calisthenics and you'll have like a great physique. So there's that cool element to it as well, because that's quite important to people too. So yeah, those are my thoughts on it.
Yeah, I also think, like you were saying there as well, is that, it's one of those things that you can actually literally do for the rest of your life. And the kind of strength that functional strength that you were saying as well, is the kind of thing that you will build up as you go along, as you age, but you'll use it and it will actually prevent a lot of problems later in life, like falls and, due to all the proprioceptive stuff that Tim and Dave teach you. So it's really, really a valuable tool to learn.
Yeah, it was cool. I remember him saying in it, he's like, he wants to be one of those 80-year-old bloke still killing it, doing like pull-ups and press-ups and stuff like that. And that's something that they touch on that's literally available to anybody. You know what I mean? If you do these exercises now, you're going to have that strength when you're older, which is really cool.
For sure.
And the other cool thing that we spoke to them about, really fascinating topic, was about the Paralympics and Paralympic athletes. And Tim actually is a strength and conditioning coach for the British Paralympic team. Now, I remember watching the Paralympics when it was on in London, actually at the games live, but also on television. And on television, the sort of slogan was, "Here come the superhumans." And seriously, these guys are just so amazing. You know, they what they do with, I guess with what they have is so inspiring. And it takes, like, I guess, a certain type of person to be able to perform like that, and to kind of just put whatever disability they have to the side, and then just become this amazing athlete.
Yeah. For me, it's just like 100% humbling. And it's a way of me, when I, like you said, watching these guys and girls perform like at their peak, and never looking back, never like complaining. And I just think, what am I complaining about in my life sometimes that I really, really shouldn't be or don't need to be? And that's really what I just took from that, like total, just harden up and get on with it and don't complain, because there's always someone else out there that may be having it harder than you have, and that, I just think that was so inspiring just to hear how little these guys feel sorry for themselves,
I think that's really exactly what it was about. And if anyone is ridiculously human, it's those athletes, that's for sure.
Sure.
So let's hear what it means for Jacko and Tim to be ridiculously human. Dave and Tim, how's it going? Welcome to the Ridiculously Human podcast. Thanks. You guys are our second guests, and we're really, really thankful. Oh, you got trumped, unfortunately.
Looks before brawn, That's it, I'm afraid.
I don't know. I was going to say that's slightly offensive. We've not got both.
I was going to say.
Actually, talking about looks,
Tim,
you look exactly like one of my best mates. Seriously, like it's quite scary how, I swear everyone in this world has a twin, and you guys are twins, like everything. Class.
I thought you look exactly like you do in the videos.
Well, I'm glad he's got more clothes on now than they do, so that's pretty good.
It's hot here in the UK. We try and do less shirt off stuff these days, but obviously there's still the odd photo float that gets pushed around.
Cool. Well, guys, thanks so much for coming on as guests. I've been following you guys probably for about a year or so now, and I'm super impressed with everything that you do, and you're really two inspiring guys, and I love the calisthenics side of things. It's something I kind of always wanted to get into. And we on the podcast, we kind of like to go through a lot of stuff, and you guys certainly have very interesting stories, and we want to go deep into that. But first of all, just a bit about you. How did you guys meet? Have you been lifelong buddies, or how did it work?
Should we go on?
Yeah. As you say, you're going to go with that.
You can go. You can tell the story about bromance.
So me and Tim haven't actually known each other as long as feels like we've known each other forever. When we get a bit more into the story of our background and whatnot, when I was retiring from playing rugby is when I actually met Tim through a mutual friend of the church we go to, and I was like, a guy that goes to church that lifts as well? I thought it was the only one. But so at that point I was still lifting weights. I'd finished playing rugby, I was still lifting weights, and then we actually just met through that, and his background, or what he was currently doing, was strength and conditioning with Paralympic athletes. And I was like, strength and conditioning, that is some. I was thinking, what am I going to do when I retire from my rugby career? And so he'd got into his strength and conditioning through. He hadn't done a degree in strength and conditioning initially, and that was the same. I've got a degree in engineering. I wanted to get into strength and conditioning, but was looking for like, is there a way to get into that without going back to uni for like another 3 years? And so when I just started chatting to him about what he was doing, and then where and how he'd got there, it was like, okay, this is why he offered to help and like give me some advice. And then ultimately we started working together on that business, which was one athlete.
At that point, we'd never done any calisthenics.
Yeah,
we weren't training calisthenics at that time. So I've been working as an S&C coach for, I don't know, about 7 years at that time, probably, specialising in Paralympic sport. And that side of the business was growing, and I was looking for someone to come in and help a little bit. So it's amazing that Dave was interested in getting into S&C, but what I needed at the time was somebody who could take over some of what we call performance, the mindset side of the business, which for us was psychology, nutrition, performance, lifestyle. And Dave is an ex-professional rugby player of 14 years, had a psychology qualification, had a nutrition qualification, had a teaching qualification. I was like, you literally couldn't have put a better piece in the jigsaw that I needed at the time. So it was a real mutual beneficial sort of relationship to start off with. And then we found out that actually we quite liked each other's company. And that's it, really. The rest,
and now we're best buds.
Yeah, now we spend most of our time together, including holidays and all sorts of stuff. But the calisthenics side of things was sort of
separate.
A later addition to the sorts of how we spend our time and what business was looking like and that sort of thing.
And do you find that that's like pretty much most of your time now is the School of Calisthenics?
Yeah, it is, I think. Originally, it literally started as a side product or project and one thing. We got into calisthenics. My wife's actually South African. So we were in Hermanus. They've got a place just over on the rocks down there. So I was on holiday and there's a gym in town, but I didn't want to go and work out indoors. It was hot. It was summertime. Why go indoors when I can train outside and look at the ocean? So I had a set of gymnastics rings with me. And then just started deciding that actually I'm going to give myself a bit of some time to play around with some calisthenics. And that was a real starting point. And then as things have changed in that journey, we can press into that a little bit more in some more detail. But as that sort of progressed, and it's just grown and grown. And One Athlete now is a smaller project. And it was never meant to be a big thing. It was always supposed to be like a boutique service for athletes, trying to get back to a real athlete-centered approach. We never wanted 100 different athletes. So it was actually more like, I refer to like a boutique hotel. Like we might have got 8 rooms, but what we do with those rooms is really special. So the calisthenics thing now is a bit more of a, let's say, mass market business with a wider appeal. Paralympics is a pretty small niche. Those two things actually now really complement each other really well.
That's cool.
Yeah, really.
And
so Hermanus, so is that a spot that you'd go and visit regularly, or
it's very lucky.
I took
it's
Dave,
Lekker, isn't it?
Isn't it? Last year, and he tried to immerse himself in South African culture, including picking up some of the language.
Through playing rugby, in the UK, you cannot. If you play rugby, the chances are you will play with some South Africans, some Australians, and some New Zealanders. Because they're from the Southern Hemisphere, they're automatically better than anyone in the UK. So it doesn't matter what level you play at, there will always be some to come over here. And so I was playing, or I did some coaching as well. It's been surrounded by Southern Hemisphere influences, shall we say, for quite a while.
So
my South African accent and whatnot and culture is of a high standard.
Dave likes to think that before we went to South Africa, we already had an advantage culturally.
Yes.
Whereas the reality was that he really didn't. And he just picked up the odd word and used it repeatedly. I'm actually going in a couple of weeks, or I'll actually fly out next week to South Africa to see the family. We're going to Hermanus. It's an incredible little spot down there. I love the whale season for the first time. I've never been down there to see the whales before, so excited to go and hang out down there. But yeah, it's great.
And so when you say that you're culturally trained in South African, that means you eat biltong, right?
Yes, I've got some actually.
and what does a holiday look like with that?
I haven't got any now. on the record,
Yeah.
because
We definitely didn't get some through the post.
no,
That's what we're saying.
When I'm in South Africa, I eat it.
Yeah, good stuff.
So let's hear your South African accent then.
Yeah, come on, Dave.
I've already given you my lekker, bro. How's it?
How's it, China? There we go.
How's it, China?
Awesome, but cool, man. So I mean, that's quite a good lead on. So David, you obviously have had a long career in rugby. You started for Nottingham when you were 6, is that right? And you ended up playing for something like 24 years, which is quite phenomenal, really. And you ended up being they're pretty much their top player in all different fields and set so many different records. Do you just want to run us through your life as a rugby player and a bit more about your background, please?
So I'll give you very short and the highlights.
Please don't give us 24 years.
No.
On Monday, I've still got a trophy for the best effort award that's dated 1988, which proves that when I was 6, I was down at Nottingham Rugby. And I think best effort normally meant you were the crappiest player, didn't it? But obviously I tried hard, and eventually that turned into something. I went through all the age groups and that, played for every team at Nottingham bar the ladies. They just wouldn't have me. So when I was 6, I wasn't playing for the first year when I was 6, but I think I remember debut when I was 17, 18, and then I was about to start my 14th season. I'd done the pre-season when I had my head injury, so I'd had a load of head knocks throughout my career, and then the last one sort of did me off. And when I was over a cut, I had a head knock in pre-season, just in a training game, and it was not in a training game, so just in training and playing touch. But I had a seizure on the pitch, and over the course of a few months, eventually saw a neurologist that said, "Jacko, I think it's probably time you don't carry on playing rugby." And I was like, "Doc, I totally agree with you. Let's look at doing something else." But that in itself was a bit of it's a difficult time in terms of my career and life, but like it gave the opportunities that came off the back of that have obviously put me where we are today. And then, like you say, in terms of like Nottingham, I'd never played for any other team, which just meant generally, as long as you get picked, you're going to play a lot of games. So I think I played 316 games, which is the club. I've got like the league record, and the position I was in on the wing or at fullback, people would give you the ball with not far to run. You just have to dot it down over the line. So you end up scoring quite a few tries. So I've got leading try scorer for that, which for me, I'm from Nottingham, and that sort of does make me quite proud, to be fair. Not something I think about very often because no one really talks about the rugby side of things these days, but in a nice way, not because I think I was an amazing player or anything, but just because I was there for so long. It will be quite hard for someone to beat, because in this day and age, if someone stays at a club for 5 years, that's a long time. If you stay 10, like, that's unheard of these days. So I might keep those records for a few years yet, hopefully.
So, David, you're definitely an example of good persistence from getting the best effort award to to becoming the leading try scorer.
I literally just stayed as best effort. It was more like last man standing.
Oh, it's awesome. So, tell me, you had a few knocks, like you said, and obviously the science and the understanding of head injuries and that kind of thing has come a long way in the last few years. So I would imagine your first few knocks that you took, you probably stiff up a lip and get back in there. Is that kind of what happened originally, like the first few knocks?
In general terms, yeah. So I was like quite lucky that actually as unlucky as I was to have all these head injuries, the way, as you said, the understanding of them has improved and increased over time. When I had my most serious one at the end, the NFL were having their big sort of court thing going through, and it was really big in the media, and everyone was sort of well aware of it. Whereas, yes, earlier on in my career, it was very much, I remember, you don't remember your own head knocks because you just don't remember, like you don't have that memory. But I remember some other people where, early on, there was a guy, we'd got promoted the week before, and he couldn't remember that. And then he'd also broken up with his girlfriend, and people were trying to like tell him that he needed to call her and that they hadn't broken up. And like everyone was just literally taking advantage of this guy that had lost his memory because he had, what we called back then, put it jellyhead. And everyone just made sure he can remember anything. Because ultimately, people had seen it before, and it's like, a bit of rest, you're sort of fine again. But what we didn't understand at those points were the cumulative effect of these head injuries. And when I saw a neurologist who looked at my MRI scan and saw there was a scar on my brain from the bleed that I'd had from this last injury. And I said to her, it's not literally two of us banged into each other playing touch. We're on the same team. We were both trying to catch the same ball. It was completely innocuous. And one of my teammates, one of my mates said, he actually was about to burst out laughing because it was funny. And then I started having a fit on the pitch, a seizure. Wow. And then the guys put me in the recovery position and got the physio over. So, but I was lucky that at that point everyone knew how sort of serious this sort of thing was. But I did spend the next 4 months trying to get back to playing again. It wasn't like we knocked it on the head there and then. And I did feel the pressure, but probably more so just from myself of like, I don't want to give up. But I was actually quite scared of playing again and was relieved when the neurologist said, you need to give up.
Wow.
Scared I'd probably play again because I didn't have the guts to actually go, look, I'm done, this is enough for me. I don't know, whatever, that's like a bit of a blokey thing, I guess, maybe.
Yeah.
And how did you deal with it sort of mentally? Was it really tough when you had to admit that it was time to retire? Like, I mean, what is it like coming back? Because I can imagine you're on a bit of a downer.
Yeah, well, the problem there's a few things that are going, like in the very short term. Like I couldn't remember. I lost 2 weeks of memory. I bought. But we're about to go to we're about to go to Morsey in France for this calisthenics retreat we're putting on, which starts on Friday, and I'm driving our camper van to put all the equipment in. So I'm actually leaving in a couple of hours. And I bought this van as just a standalone van 2 weeks before I got my head injury. And it was the first time I drove it to training when I had it. And apparently I was found the physio. So I've like put in a recovery position, like I said, and then like the physio went off to get some stuff. And it was like, we're going to take you to hospital. And he sort of like sat me down. He took me to his car, and then he needed to get his keys or something. So he like just stood me there for like 2 minutes while I went to get his keys. And apparently I started looking at this van, and one of the lads came up to me and was like, and I'm looking at this van, and I was like, whose is this? And he was like, it's yours. I can't remember any of this because it was sort of him telling me that conversation. And I know now that I bought that 2 weeks before, so I'd lost that sort of memory. And some of the things with the head injury like that, you've got a lot going on through your head. You don't know really what's going on. You're a bit of a zombie for quite a while. Your side effects are like you've got things like headaches and being sensitive to light and just not being able to concentrate. And cognitively, your brain it's injured, so it can't like process things as well. So you just feel a bit like lethargic, and then end up just like sleeping a lot and that sort of stuff. But depression is a side effect of that, and like the other thing is you don't know what's going on. So you go, when I've broken loads of bones in my body playing rugby before, and you go, Doc, when am I going to be back? You go, 3 months. You're like, great, okay, 3 months is going to be brutal, but then I know when I'm going to come back. I was going to people, what's the matter with me? And when am I going to be better? Like I still can't do anything. Like can't even watch a TV without getting a headache. And that sort of stuff. So that was a difficult time. And then you're throwing into the mix of going like, well, I'm now this feels way more serious than any of my other head injuries. And I started to think after a month goes by, you're going like, oh crikey, like, am I going to play again rather than am I going to just be all right, just generally? Then you're starting to think, well, if I'm gonna, we also end our contracts. It was like if you're injured for 6 months, they can cancel your contract. So you're like, even if I don't want to like retire, it might just be taken out of me anyway, and that sort of thing. And you're going, what am I going to do? Who's going to pay the mortgage? mine, I ended up like retiring at Christmas. It was like, who's going to pay the mortgage this Christmas? And that in itself brings like worry and that sort of stuff in. So there's a lot of stuff going on, and that sort of was tough. But like I said, other opportunities just came about, and I'm loving what I'm doing now. And actually, if that hadn't have happened, I wouldn't have been doing what I'm doing now. I wouldn't have been like working with Tim, and I could have still met Tim, but I wouldn't have been going, right, I want to do what you're doing, and let's start working together and this, that, the other. So nothing I have now would have come out of the back of that. But,
yeah,
those things. There's sometimes those tough times. You learn a lot about yourself as well, and actually, like, good stuff came out of it. Weirdly, I'll probably say like I wouldn't change anything other than what I know now about head injuries is, the number of times I got knocked out previous in my career, I'd have took more time out to recover properly and not played. I remember playing games where it was like, I remember one time within half, I ended up breaking my cheekbone in a game where I got knocked out in the first half, carried on playing, didn't know what was going on, nearly got pulled off because I was playing so badly. Like, a ball got kicked and I was playing fullbacks. Like, someone shouted, like, "What? Why didn't you catch that ball?" Literally just let it bounce right next to me. And at half time, felt sick. Told the physio, didn't get particularly dealt with that well, and went out in the second half. And then just before I broke my cheekbone, I turned around to one of the teammates and went, "Trevor, I actually feel all right now. Like, I know what's going on. Like, we're about that. It's a scrum over there, isn't it?" He's like, "Yes, great. Let's get on. They're literally about to chuck you the ball. Someone throws me the ball. I sidestep inside and then run into someone's massive Swede, who then broke my cheekbone." And that was then. But the problem with that is I was then knocked out as well. So I was concussed and knocked out, broke the cheekbone, went to hospital. They deal with your broken cheekbone. They don't deal with your head injury because you can't see the head injury, and that's one of the issues. And I remember coming back to training after that. Cheek was fine, so let's train. I felt horrendous, and I couldn't. It was like, well, I had an operation, so it was under general anaesthetic. It was like, maybe that's what it is. And only now, like, looking back, I go, I know exactly what it is. I was still struggling from the concussion that I'd sustained. So that's the thing that I would change. I would just know how to look after myself better. But that's just where everyone was at. Like, the whole medical team and everything didn't know what they know now, if you know what I mean. But I certainly wouldn't say I wouldn't do it again. I remember I did a talk at the club after I retired, and a lady put a genuine question, a reasonable question, but she was like, after you've told me what has happened to you, like, why should I let my son play rugby? And I was like, how did you get here today? You got in your car. Like, you don't not take your kid in the car. Don't tell me that, like, rugby is too dangerous. And so, yeah, I mean, we do every day. Everyone does something way more dangerous than playing rugby. But the plus side of any of you guys played any team sports, the plus side of what you get in terms of, like, respect and camaraderie, like friendships you build, the discipline you get. I wouldn't be the person I am today if I'd have not been part of those great rugby teams that I've been part of.
And in some ways, you guys are still you're still building now a team and a tribe with what you're doing as well. So, because I guess this is something calisthenics, so something you can do on your own or you can do as a group. And how do you guys like to do it? Is like, do you do a lot of training on your own in that specific field, or do you still mix it up, in terms of your workouts?
I started calisthenics about 3.5 years ago, and I haven't done an upper body, like barbell or dumbbell based session in 3.5 years. Lower body still, I will do. It's changed the focus a little bit in the lower body, but in terms of, I've not pressed a weight in that sense of a free weight for a long time. In terms of how we do it, one of the really interesting things that we liked about calisthenics was that when we first started, because it looks a little bit different, people are interested, we're doing stuff that actually people look at and go, like, we talk about the muscle up, and when you see someone doing muscle up, there's not many guys who like training that go, I want to be able to do that. Or there's a lot of people that go, I want to be able to do a muscle up. And when we were getting people coming over and talking to us, go, how do you do that? And we just found that all of a sudden around calisthenics, there was a bit more of a community feel. It was less about, like, headphones in, hat down, get underneath the bar and squat it. It was more about actually just conversations and having a bit more freedom to sort of engage with people. And I think a lot of that, like we talk a lot about getting back to the importance of play when we train. And our training looks like play. Like when we first started in the gym, people would come up to us and going, "What are you guys doing? Because it looks like you're messing about." And we're like, "Yeah, we are. That's exactly what we're doing. We're just messing about."
That was our best compliment at that time, wasn't it? Because we were rubbish.
But that was it. And it was that idea that actually get back to training being fun. And I see so many people in gyms around the country and different places in the world that I've worked, and it just doesn't look like having a good time. Like, you watch us train, we're having a good time, and whether that's together or by ourselves, or there's some really nice stuff around calisthenics about group-based environments and having fun with your mates. But there's also something quite nice about putting my earphones in and focusing in on the movement patterns. Like, learning to handstand is quite a lot of intrinsic stuff going on. So just centering yourself in the skill acquisition phase of that, I actually find that really refreshing. So when we go away, we'll be down in Hermanus in a couple of weeks. I'll definitely be doing some of that, putting some classical music on and doing some handstands by the sea by myself, and I'll be absolutely loving every minute of it because it's cool.
Drinking organic.
So you say classical music, is that? So you say classical music, is that like genuinely like what you use to listen to when you do handstands? Or is that,
yeah, anything really. I listen to a lot. I've been.
This is new to me. I'm learning here.
I listen to your 24 career.
No. As I'm saying, this is new, but that wasn't new. I'm interested because I didn't know you listened to classical music when you were doing it.
Yeah, a lot. So I've been self-employed for about 10 years, and life gets busy, right? I was getting stressed, and as a strength and conditioning coach, I've always, rather than going and working for an organisation, I've kind of just been a private business in that sense. So you'd be running from one session to another, and there's so much stuff going on. And I just found that I couldn't get in the car in the morning and just listen to drum and bass or rock music or anything, because it was just fueling this kind of mental intensity that I was already experiencing. So I started listening to classic FM and just loved it. And that's a massive part of what I do now when I work. Like we obviously the content that we develop when I'm writing, I put some of that sort of stuff on, and like all sort of, it's opened my eyes and ears to a much wider genre of music, and there's some amazing stuff out there, and it just calms me down, which is nice.
Yeah, I'm totally with you. Like I actually go through phases of what I listen to, and it's funny, like when I was hitting the weights, probably for about a year, I started listening to like Dire Straits for some reason. And I just kept on playing the Sultans of Swing, and it was ridiculous. Like, that was my music to pump me up. And so, sorry, Tim, like a bit about yourself. Did you grow up playing rugby as well?
Yeah. I started when I was about 9 years old. Dad took me to a rugby club, and just fell in love with it. And that was it for the. Well, I don't actually know when I stopped playing after my last shoulder injury, which I think was probably when I was about 27, 28, something like that. And played most seasons at club and university level, and didn't quite reach the dizzy heights of Nottingham Rugby Club. But I don't know if you've noticed, I've got a much smaller frame than Dave. So before I started training when I was in Australia, properly lifting weights. I weighed myself when I went into the gym on the first day, and I weighed 68 kilos. Like, I haven't got a big frame. So yeah, it's not surprising that I had my fair share of rugby injuries over the years, just getting absolutely hammered by dudes at like 100 kilos.
I was 72 kilos when I played my first team game, and I did a backwards somersault trying to tackle somebody. I was 10.5 through. I was definitely very small too. Why not? It's still smaller, but.
So I'd like to ask you about that. You guys have both been, pretty competitive with your sport and diving and all sorts of different things, and obviously the training you're doing now is pretty full on as well. How do you guys deal with injuries and like your mindset around the injuries, and how do you feel these days after having those injuries from other sports? How does that translate into the way you're training now?
I'm going to start on this one.
Yeah, it's because it's different. So it's different for both of us.
Two things about what happens with current injuries, and I'll talk about how we manage old injuries. So Dave and I are quite different, I would say, in levels of maturity around training. So when I'm training,
and music, of course.
Yeah. Can we have a guess?
Yeah. when I'm training, I listen to my body. So when it starts telling me that actually you're tired or you've done too much or that's niggling, I respect my body and stop training or do something different.
Whereas I do what I did in rugby is you just try and bully it.
Yeah. So what happens is Dave is literally getting back from a elbow injury, which is not completely sidelined him, but it's been a hindrance. It's fair to say, but probably 3 months.
Yeah, for like muscle ups, I think.
Because he was trying to do stuff when he was tired, effectively too hard stuff.
Yeah,
so you're effectively going in the gym and doing hard stuff all the time. Yeah. But you were coming off a block of doing some really good stuff, and you got a lot of progression, but you just kind of tipped over the edge where you actually probably had some warning signs. So that's a massive thing about actually people think more is better, and especially with calisthenics when you get into it, there's you're going to place a much different stress on your body than you've had before. So the connective tissue, the ligaments, the tendons in the upper body aren't used to being loaded in the ways that our lower bodies were from years of sprint training and rugby and that sort of stuff. And most people, unless you've been through gymnastics, are going to be in a similar position. So the amount of loading that you can do over a longer period of time is actually, you need to give that some respect, because the tissues will break down. You do get golfer's elbow, and those things are completely avoidable, but we just get excited and addicted to it because it's so sort of progressive. Every time you go in the gym, you're finding out, wow, I'm doing something I couldn't do before, so I'm going to do more, and then all of a sudden you break down and it ends up being a tendon issue, and that's just a pain to fix. That can be drag on for months. In terms of older injuries, Dave asked me this question the other week, actually, we were chatting about it. I don't know how many times I've dislocated my shoulder. It's that many. I've had 2 reconstructions, and the reason I started to learn calisthenics, and particularly to handstand in the first place, apart from wanting to be outdoors and train a little bit more, not necessarily having to be in the gym, was I thought if I could handstand, then that would tell me that my shoulder was stable, because I'd done all the physio stuff, and this was over a period. I had my first reconstruction in 2002. I think I had my last one in probably like 2007, 2008, when I was finishing playing rugby. So I'd done a lot of shoulder rehab over that period of time, and none of it had worked. So I was like, this is just ridiculous. I need to do something different, and that's why I originally started to learn to handstand. But Dave's had his fair share of shoulder issues, and if you play 14 years of professional rugby, you're going to have a few stories to tell about broken bones and that sort of thing.
Things like that. I remember things like broken hand never got like. You get given these options like, Doc, how long is it going to? Because all you bother about when you get injured is, Doc, how long is it going to be till I get back? And it was like I broke my hand and it didn't really cut. It wasn't great when I came back, but it was fine for playing rugby. But you go, well, now I want to do a handstand. And you're like, well, actually, you could do with having a hand that's functioning properly. Like I can't make a real flat fist because the second metatarsals like just outlined a little bit and that sort of thing. I remember snapping my ringed finger tendon. Doc, how long's that going to be? Like, surely I can just strap that up and I'll be fine next week. Well, yeah, but you've snapped the one underneath and that will never grow back. Like, it's just gone. It's like somewhere up here. And I was like, well, how do I get that sorted? Well, you have to have an operation, reattach it, and that'll take 3 months. I was like, 3 months for my finger? No way. Like, why would I do 3 months? And like, I remember talking to another physio and they said, well, do you want to be able to do, there's certain things I can't do with that finger, and I can't strain it out. So again, like for a handstand, but at the time it was like, I never thought, I was like, do you going to want to learn to play the piano? No. Do you want to learn, you know what I mean? I was thinking of things, what things are going to affect me? No, not bothered, right. So I'll just strap it up and play next week and just live with a cracked finger for the rest of my life. And then some of those things now start to come out of the woodwork when you're like, okay, I'm going to try balancing on my hands. But you just deal with it and you find ways to compensate, I guess, as long as it just needs to be safe. Well, the biggest one for me, again, was a shoulder one. Broke my shoulder blade in 2 places, the chromium and the coracoid process, like 2 pretty reasonable, poor bits to try and break on your shoulder blade, or complicated bits to try and break on your shoulder blade. And dislocated my AC joint, which is like a full dislocation there. So my collarbone effectively at my shoulder is not connected. So there's a bit of slackness and whatnot in that shoulder that, again, I guess it wasn't particularly fine when I first got back to playing rugby. That's the type of thing you do. You play before you're fully ready to. And but now that can cause me some issues lower down the chain if I don't sort of look after it. But, I always think of, we talk about these injuries and a lot of the stuff like we find the calisthenics actually done correctly and listening to your body like Tim does better than I do. A lot of the principles around how we're training, like the shoulder, the rotator cuff, and the proprioception of balancing on your hands, that sort of stuff, is actually really good and healthy for your shoulder. And Tim can talk more about that for you because he's excited about some research projects that we're trying to do with university. I forgot where I'm going now. I've lost my train of thought.
That's good. So in your guys' like ebook that you give out for free, you actually mention that shoulders is something which you kind of really need to take care of because you use it a lot when you do calisthenics. What did you guys do before you got into it to kind of strengthen them and make sure that they were actually okay to do it, or were you not really thinking about it too much at that time?
Yeah, I guess this is one of the ways where I've kind of benefited from a bit more time as a strength and conditioning coach over Dave coming into the industry a little bit sort of later on, that I was still doing a lot of, let's call it more like standard weight training type, different phases of training, whether it's like stabilization or strength, endurance type work or more maximal strength, whatever. But it was still kind of in the weight room lifting weights. So within that, I was using what I was learning from my strength and conditioning qualifications and starting to apply that to my own training. So I was doing a lot of shoulder stability work, whether that was, like we use a YTW still a lot in calisthenics. It's a standard exercise we use with a lot of athletes. Scaption positions, rotator cuff exercises, a lot of work on shoulder stability. But the interesting thing around that really is I'd still done all of that and then still dislocated. So I actually dislocated my shoulder on a workshop trying to do a snatch balance with a bar overhead and pressing it in front of a room full of S&C coaches. My shoulder dropped out, which is a less than glamorous moment. But it's actually being calisthenics which is being the one thing which has fixed it for me. So the human flag position, overhead, hand overhead, shoulder externally rotated, putting force down would have been exactly the position that I would normally dislocate in. So when I said when Dave and I started playing around with it, I was like, mate, this is not a good shape for me. I don't feel good here. I had so little confidence. Whereas 3 years down the line, my shoulders have never been better. Not at 8. I'm 36. I'm 37 in November, and all the years of playing sport and I used to be able to lie on the sofa with my hand behind my head and my shoulder just sort of like feel like it was slipping out of place. But now they're great. They're bomb-proof. And we want to share a lot of that around helping people to understand looking after the shoulders, because it's a vulnerable joint, right? It's a ball and socket like the hip, but the architecture of it is so different. It's designed for mobility, but comes at the cost of stability. So we need to give it some TLC. It needs a little bit of a special approach. And a lot of people, particularly these days, with the amount of people that come with poor postural patterns, terrible flexibility, they've spent 10 years underneath a bench press and they wonder why they can't lift their arms overhead. They have to undo all of that sort of stuff, because it's not just a limiting factor for calisthenics, it's a limiting factor for just general shoulder health. And we're going to ask people to get in some fairly extreme positions in back levers and that sort of stuff. It's not that the shoulder can't do it, you just need to create the conditions to allow it to have that freedom of movement and be able to stabilize itself.
And so you'd had that reconstruction on it, and that still wasn't stable. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah, the initial one, the first one I had was okay for a bit, and then when my shoulder started dislocating again, and I went back and had a chat to the surgeon, and he said, look, let's just go and have a look. And they gave me a regional block so I could see it on TV. I was watching it while they were digging around in my shoulder, and the original repair had come loose, so it was a slap tear, a slap repair, which is basically a tear in the labrum, which is the disc which kind of creates a little bit more depth to the joint. So I'd torn that. So it was basically like when the shoulder was in that position, it would just slide out of the fossa on the scapula. The humerus would just slip out. So they actually then started they repaired that to give it more like it's like a saucer type, keeping the shoulder in place on the scapula. So he actually then put 2 stitches in this time. He came back in after I'd had the surgery. Goes, they'll take half a ton each, so you should be all right. Ironically, I was really worried. About 12 months after I'd had that operation, I went snowboarding. Last run of the day, my wife was just getting something ticked off, and she wanted to do another run. I was like, oh, I'm done, but okay, one more. It's always one more, right? So I've been working
on your body, Tim.
Been working on some kickers and trying to do a few bits and bobs. And I hit a jump wrong, landed on my front, shoulder overhead, popped my shoulder, ended up in the hospital in Austria, and was absolutely terrified that I'd torn this repair apart, and all of a sudden I was going to be back in surgery for another one. And it's 6 weeks in a sling. It's a 6 to 9 month rehab process. It's flipping horrible. But fortunately, calisthenics and where I'm at now, I would never have thought that would have been. That was 4 years ago, 3.5 years into calisthenics, best show I've ever had. So we're doing something right.
I thought you were going to say, when he said that should be all right, it's going to take half a ton, and you were going to go, I'm thinking about going for bulking.
Bulk up a little bit more.
And Tim, so you said like you haven't done any upper body work in the gym, like hitting the weights for 3 years, but you do still do it for legs. Can you just explain to the listeners why you know, and is it specific to you, or can other people also follow these sort of programs to maintain muscle? Sorry.
Yeah. I'm going to stay on track in terms of getting sidetracked about maintaining muscle, because it's not my primary focus anymore. I'll talk maybe later about male dysmorphia and the issues that we have around body composition. But from my perspective, my own training, calisthenics is fun for your body. It does a great job. The lower body, the size of the musculature and the function just needs a little bit more intensity than what I can get through my own body weight. Unless you want to start loading pistol squats with 40 kilo weighted vests, which is maybe not the best idea. There's benefits of keeping some lower body strength based working because of, as I said, the size of the muscles that you work in. And also function. The lower body is designed to be able to handle more force. So if we're sprinting, for example, we're going to risk getting 9 to 11 times body weight back from the ground when the foot hits the floor. So we should be able to handle and manage those forces. And I quite like that idea in terms of maintaining function. A lot of the stuff, my focus and ethos around training has changed over the years. Is what do I want longer term? So it's now not about rugby anymore. It's about longevity, and I want to still be an athlete. I want to still be able to move when I'm 70 years old. I want one of those dudes that's like old and awesome, and you look at me and go, that's who I want to be. 80 years old, just killing it still, because it's just that, like, I really believe that we don't get weak because we get old. There's some physiological symptoms which become less optimal, but we get weak because we stop moving, we stop training, and we stop providing the body with a stimulus. So my training, I don't squat much anymore, and that will send shockwaves in some people's lives because, of course, if you're a gym coach, you've got to squat. But I would argue that actually sticking 100 plus kilos on the top of my spine and compressing it when it hurts my knees, if it's going heavy, is not actually a great exercise. Deadlifts, it's a human pattern, picking heavy stuff up from the floor. We've been doing that for a long time. And I actually really like lunge patterns. So my go-to is yes, we do pistols and shrimp squats as a calisthenics bodyweight movement, but holding dumbbells by my side and then doing lunging patterns. I like the transition of what happens of lunge patterns. I like the grip that I get from holding the weights because it's good for my shoulder. And it's a functional movement. It's something that I'm going to want to be strong in if I want to go and climb a mountain. I've got a little boy who's 7 months old. When I'm 36, so he's got a few years on me. Like, what are we going to still be able to go and climb mountains when I'm 55 years old? Like, and that's one foot in front of the other. So let's get good at doing that sort of stuff. And it's maybe my own philosophy. It's not for everybody, but that's what I enjoy. That's where I see the most amount of benefit. And the other thing to throw into that is with the business and with work and family life and training time is limited. So I'm not a 9 to 5 guy who gets to go to the gym 6 times a week. If I get 3 sessions in a week, then I'm actually doing pretty well. So I have to be quite selective about where I'm going to invest that training time.
I really like that kind of thinking because, people throw these words around functional patterns and functional training and all these kind of things. And I don't know if a lot of people actually ever, like you say, think about actual health span of them, not just lifespan. And I think that you've got that in the back of your mind. And I really like the idea of play because, like you said, you were talking proprioception. I'd love to hear more about that as well. Like proprioceptive stuff as you get older is going to be so super important just for like your well-being and falls and all sorts of things. So when you say proprioceptive work, like how does that sort of tie into your training?
Yeah, it's a great point. I'm going to be blunt. Old people fall over because they lose fast twitch reactive ability. So we're going to lose some type 2 fast twitch muscle fibers as we age. We're going to lose some joint stability. So actually, the best thing that we could be doing from a training perspective for people as they get older is increasing the amount of single leg balance work that they do, but also keeping some level of, even if it's just low plyometrics, just jumping, that ability to reflexively stabilize. So if you guys, if it was winter outside, you step on some ice, your body will automatically make an adjustment without you thinking about it. But that'll be because you've got some level of ability to control and react to that stimulus. As we become more sedentary and later life, we do less, we experience less environments, we're maybe a little bit more cautious, we sit down, we stay indoors. And then with the physiological changes that happen as a result of getting older, we just not that well primed for stepping down off a curve and not going face first into the floor. So I think, like for me, like keeping some hopping movements in there. Like Dave was a massive one of his thing is in the gym as a rugby player was plyometrics. Like this guy can jump. So keeping some of that sort of work in there, going for a run, like doing some sprint work, it's going back to all of those different sort of movement patterns that you think actually that's going to be useful, and linking that in with it. And that's where one of the real positives of calisthenics is you can't do it unless you're engaging or using let's use core for a word that people understand. But it's that integration of the whole kinetic chain. That's where our thought is now, that actually we need to link the whole body together. It was never designed to be used as an isolated function. The shoulders shouldn't be having to work by itself. It was designed to work on a stable base provided by the intrinsic core stabilizers, the hips. So if we start to understand movement better, we're less worried about whether I'm going to go and do a calf raise or a knee extension in the gym. And actually, I should just do a lunge pattern, and I should be just try and hop on a box and see what happens. But that's more putting yourself out there. People maybe don't feel so confident with that sort of stuff, but in terms of a return on investment, that is exactly where you should be putting your money.
Beautiful.
You must see quite a change, I guess, in the clients that you have come to you, not just in their physical ability, but also in their mindset. Once they start noticing their own progress.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's one of the things that we love about calisthenics training, that our philosophy is around redefining your impossible. And when you try and do, when we tried to do a human flag for the first time, or Tim's nailing his planche at the moment, and you can remember when that felt like. I remember him turning to me, he was like, "That is impossible. I've got nothing." Like there's no other words to describe it other than you go, "That's impossible." But it's amazing how your mindset changes when you we break this down and we teach people to do these things that they thought were impossible, and then you look at what you then start to changes your mindset around, like how you look at anything, like not just training. You look at other things in training and go, okay, well that looks impossible and it feels impossible, but I've done this other thing that I remember when that felt impossible. So why can't if I work systematically towards and progressively towards it, there's no reason why I can't build up the strength or the skills and whatever and the movement patterns I need to be able to do that. But then you also take it outside of that and you go like, we're trying to grow this as a business, and you go like, well, why can't we grow it to where we want it to be? It might feel impossible at the start, but we know we can do those things. It's just the same thing, breaking it down. It's just the steps are different steps. It's in terms of business compared to just physically what we're trying to do. Is breaking it down into simple steps and then working progressively towards it. And picking up on some of the training stuff that Tim said, and you picked up on about the whole play thing. Like I love training, and I love training for the purpose of trying to be good at rugby and as a game of the weekend. And like now that's not there. It's like, well, what am I training for? And I did go through that myself, and the calisthenics gave me that sort of, okay, well now I'm trying to learn X. Trying to learn a human flag, like that's what I'm trying to do. And when I can do that, I can actually. There's a day when one day all of a sudden I can now. Yesterday I couldn't when I tried. Now I actually can because I've built that up. And you've got like a tangible thing a goal to work towards, rather than coming in and going, right, it's January the 1st. I want to get fit. Like, what does that mean? When are you ticking that off? When are you actually achieving that?
Best one of those is I want to get big.
Yeah, well, that was the other thing I was going to touch on, where you go, doing things you enjoy doing. Yes, we need to work on our weaknesses and whatnot. But like as Tim said, if Tim doesn't like squatting heavy, and he's not a he hasn't got a job that requires him to be good at squatting, so he's not a power lifter or competitive whatever, then why does he need to do that if he can get a training benefit elsewhere? I don't do any weighted, so just on that like leg stuff, I don't do any weighted leg stuff now because one, time thing as well as Tim, just haven't got the time to it. I don't enjoy it that much. And actually, if my legs look small, because of genetically I'm actually probably like more like an ectomorph if I didn't train at all, like I'm just got to the point where I'm cool with that. Like I prefer to be able to, my thing is my mobility is awful coming from rugby. The whole rugby thing was all around, can you play at the weekend? That was anything someone's bothered by. I wasn't bothered whether you could touch your toes or not. It was, can you play at the weekend? And so I now actually would prefer to be able to get into some better movement positions, like Tim was saying about, so when I'm older, I can bend down and pick something up off the floor, and I can reach my hand above my head. At the moment, I want to be good with overhead positions because I want to be able to do a handstand or a human flag. But it has that longevity to it, but it gives me a reason to work on my mobility and flexibility that lets me do some stuff that's enjoyable. If that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
so,
totally.
I mean, you guys, you speak really, really like well, and there's a lot of lessons in terms of the things that you just spoke about now. Do you find that you're now the source of motivation and inspiration for a lot of people? And is that something that is like adds stress to your life, or you actually get more motivation from that?
I think we're massively flattered and humbled when people send us feedback about the information that we've put out, because it's this genuinely, and it still is. We had another business on. This was a project where we were rubbish at calisthenics, for our own benefit, trying something different. And then someone said to us, "Well, can you teach me to do that? It's pretty cool." And we're like, "All right, yeah, okay, we'll run a workshop," and then we started to develop this framework that we've come up with, which is unique and a progressive approach, applying what we know about strength and conditioning, especially from working with Paralympic athletes. We look at movement slightly differently. If you're training somebody who's only got one leg, for example, or missing an arm, how do you then train them to do what they need to be able to do to achieve something? And the stuff that we put out now is literally just us sharing our philosophy about how we see training, how we see the benefits of calisthenics, our experiences from within that. And when people come back and say, "You guys have really inspired me to do this," or "I'm really enjoying the content that you guys are putting out," we still text each other and go, "Look at this amazing thing that we'll never."
Yeah, literally, if you look at our WhatsApp group, yeah,
we'll never granted, because it's amazing. And one of the things that we wrote in the beginner's guide, I think, right when we first started, was that we're just two normal, real people just trying to teach other real people to be awesome. And it was, we don't think we've got anything special. We certainly haven't got 25 years of gymnastics experience behind us. We just got maybe a little bit of a different take on how we see training and movement. And we want other people to get out of that rut that training can be. We want them to, we have the other sort of like phrase we use is to explore your physical potential through bodyweight training. And we're losing that as a humanity, or as a human race. In 2017, we're becoming less functional all the time. And there's lots of different people doing lots of different movement type things and flow patterns, and there's loads of stuff out there. We've just got our little bit that we find really exciting, really enjoyable, and we see the benefits of sharing with people. And when we go on a workshop and we teach someone to ring muscle up for the first time, like, you've never seen such happy people, like, because it's and sharing some of that, being able to give people that level of enjoyment and happiness. So I don't think we feel pressure on it in terms of that. We're just going to keep being who we are and doing what we do and trying to share the best quality information that we can, and give people the benefit of the opportunities that we've had as professional coaches and Dave as an athlete. And we've learned a few things along the way that maybe some other people have got different experiences, but these are our experiences, and we just want to kind of put those out there.
I think, like you said about coaching, like that's sort of where we back ourselves, or where we hang our hat on is as coaches. So, we're not the best at calisthenics because we've only been doing it 3.5 years, and we came from rugby, not gymnastics, which are probably like two opposite things, if you know what I mean. Like, people can go, "Oh, well, you're quite strong because you did rugby." And like, okay, yeah, but we move horribly compared to having a gymnastics background. And I often think that that's like a bit of a downfall for us, if you know what I mean. But the reality is that people go, some of the feedback I get is like, the fact that you have come from nothing. You had no, like, the first time I did a frog stand, you only balance on your hands and your elbows. I just smashed my face onto the floor. And that's when someone come up to us in the gym and just thought we looked like idiots. I guess because we were. But yeah, we back ourselves in that coaching. Like, that's what we've done day in, day out for a long time. And that's what we get a kick out of and a buzz out of, like teaching somebody to do something they thought was impossible. I love glad that you touched on the mindset side. I love seeing that when we see people, if we spend in a 3-hour workshop, they might even say at the beginning, "No, that's impossible. You're never going to get me to do that." And we can't teach everyone in 3 hours. Like, some people it's weeks or it's months, but there are always some that learn something for the first time on one of the workshops, and it's just because, and not for anything other than just like. We understand what you're doing, what you need to do. We understand what you might be doing wrong when we see you, just because that's the experience of coaching. And then we've got the cues to help you with that. And I'm glad you mentioned about like the whole thing around how the School of Calisthenics, if you like, as a business, like started was organic. Like Tim was saying, people said, "Oh, well, can you teach us?" And it was like, "Oh yeah, we'll put a workshop on." And it started first as the Strength Training for Survival in the Urban Jungle was the name of the first workshop we put on. But
the whole mindset around that was like, get strong for the world, not just the gym. Like, so we played around, and we've got a YouTube video to do at some point. But like, the whole thing was that we had two different strands or two different workshops. One was preservation and one was evasion. So preservation was life saving strategies. So
he loves it.
If you like in a burning building or had a few beers with your mates and you fell out of a balcony, like, you've got to be able to do a muscle up to get out of that situation to save your life. You can't do it.
Baby on your estate doing a muscle up, haven't you?
I don't like to go on about it, but there was a time.
Take us back there.
So we threw that. Yeah, we put it out there, and it was.
I think the problem was we didn't have an audience at that point.
Yeah.
So that we threw it out there, like you laugh, you got it straight away. But there was, if you can have the greatest idea in the world, if you got 10 Facebook followers, like, it's not really going to fly. So it's something we've got over 100,000 across our different social medias now. It's probably, if we could put something together, I think the concept might be grasped better.
We'll see.
But it's one of those things at the start, you go like, you get this thing, I've got this great idea, and you put it out there, and it was, we sold out the workshop of 10 places or whatever, so we were like really excited by that. Then you put these other things out there sometimes across social, and you'll be the same with your launching your podcast. To start with, you haven't got a following, so it's hard to get really big before anyone's heard it or seen it. So you put out your first few episodes, and there's only a handful of people that see them, if you know what I mean. But the growth with us was very very organic. We were just working on this just as a bit of a side thing. We kept saying to each other, like, this has got legs. We got a video. We got 3 guys who had like strength to weight ratio way less than me and Tim. And one guy has exactly the same name as me, David Jackson. He is about 6'3", I think. So he's a tall guy. And in 7 weeks, they learnt a flag. We're looking at each other going, crikey, this stuff works. Like, and the proof's in the pudding. Like, you go on our graduates page and you see all these people that are learning. People on the graduates page, most of them, probably 95% of them, have never met us. They've just watched the video tutorials in the guide and learned how to do these things. People send us, it's funny, people now, they might look at us now and you go, oh, well, we get asked like, oh, so when I send you a message on Facebook, like, how do you who's managing all that for you? I go, when you send me a message at 11 o'clock on a Sunday night, I'm replying, or Tim's replying, and his missus is going, or my missus is going, what are you doing? And I was just replying to John in flipping Barbados. But we love like just trying to help people with that, and it's the whole reason why the beginner's guide being free. We went right. The whole school started because I wanted to do. Well, Tim started doing hand balancing. I was like, I'd love to do a few in human flag. Like, that stuff looks sick. I just thought, like, holiday photos, that's going to be brilliant. Like, that's literally where it started. And then you search in YouTube how to do a human flag to try and find out some techniques and tips, and there's just nothing other than a bloke gives his phone to his missus who films him, and him just goes, you do it like this, and I went, and we were just literally like, well, that doesn't help. Like, yeah, I can see that you can do it, but you haven't taught me how to do it. And we just saw a gap in the market of, there's no one teaching this. Can we apply what we've learned through strength and conditioning, exercise science, movement, like sort of kinetic chain principles that we use within the Paralympic athletes that we train, can we apply that knowledge to calisthenics? And we just sort of thought, well, it's movement, it's just a different movement, and that's sort of how it started. But we knew that the getting started is tough. A lot of people, like first time we watched the Frank Magana video, I was like, yep, that is me. That is what I'm now. I've finished training with. That is how I'm going to train. And if I can be 10% as good as him, I'm going to be happy. And as you get better, you keep moving those goalposts. But for a lot of people, they see it equally and they're inspired and they go, great. But 9 times out of 10 they go, but I can't do that. And how the hell do I start? There's no one actually showing me how to break it down and start. So we put the first thing we did with the School of Calisthenics when we launched them on the website was a beginner's guide. That's all we had to start with. It was beginner's guide. It's free, and it'll always be free on that site because we want to take away those barriers from people, so they can actually get started with it. I've got a friend that does CrossFit. He hates it, but he knows it's good for 5 stone or something. So yeah, it's exercise. So exercising is good for you, but you shouldn't have to do something that you hate. Life's too short for that. Particularly when it's just for health and wellness and staying fit. Do something you like. And not everyone's going to like this. And so I'm not trying, if someone doesn't like it, or if they get our free beginner's guide and they don't like it, they haven't lost anything anyway. But look, the thing that you'll do is if you do a little bit of stuff with us, whatever your sport, whatever you like, whatever it is, just as long as you want to do a little bit of training to be fit and a bit healthy, I guarantee you will learn at least one thing from doing it. Just you'll learn something
that you could apply in any other rest of your training.
Something about your body language, something about your shoulders, something that you will actually be able to take away with you and go, that thing, I'm going to carry on doing that, even though I'm going to go away and carry on my Olympic weightlifting or whatever it is you can do. I'm a marathon runner. I had someone the other day, a dad, he's loving his training. Can't remember what guide he's got. I'll have to look me up. But he's like, my footy, so soccer for you guys, has got better. I'm now shielding the ball and something else better than I did before. And I'm like, I think he's doing a handstand guide. And you're like, well, that's great. Because, those crossovers into other training and other sports, I get it, we think it, but for someone to actually feel it themselves and get it and then report back to us rather than me asking. I didn't send him an email I think I sent him an email just saying, thanks for buying the guide, how's the training going? I didn't say, I wasn't trying to get him to think that I didn't even know he played football. So that's a very long rant from me. I just got I feel like I've had a coffee.
No, I think in everything you say, there's just so many cool lessons there. And just sorry, is it specific? Do you have more guys or girls coming to your classes? And is it something that guys should do, girls shouldn't do? For our listeners.
I think one of the amazing things that we've experienced from calisthenics is that we get everyone. So we literally we could rock up a workshop, or we can run a class, or we get people who get in touch who've got some of the guides, and we've got some people whose kids are doing it at home, so they're watching the beginner's guide, and we get pictures of kids doing pull-ups and frog stands, and they might be 7, 9, 12 years old. Yeah. We had a guy, a kid that we put up on our social a couple of weeks ago doing a L-sit to handstand. And then we'll have 16, 17-year-old girls coming who doing aerial fitness and pole fitness, all the way through to, we've got a guy called Graham, and he won't mind me giving a shout out. He's 70
this year, so he's 69, but he never says that. But I presume, I don't know when, I need to ask him when his birthday is, at some point he's going to be 70.
Yeah. But he's a truck driver for 40 years. And he is one of the most dedicated calisthenics athletes that we've worked with. And it's amazing. And especially with the female market is really interesting, because I think it's an opportunity. I think girls want to get strong. I think they want to have that shape of what girls want from exercise and from training is now they like that idea of being able to manage their own body weight, but they don't necessarily want to go and fight for the bench press in the weights area of a gym with loads of dudes doing whatever, grunting and slapping each other on the ass. It means beautiful strength. That's where the word originates from, and I think that's really ticks a lot of boxes for females, and also it's a really great progression through from yoga. So they start to play around with some inversion, they start to play around with some kind of the basic positions and like things that we would incorporate, like some basic hand balancing. But it brings in the strength side, and they see handstand push-ups and they see stuff, and the girls are going, yeah, that's a really natural flow from yoga through to calisthenics. So it's amazing from that sense that we literally have got a massive spectrum of demographic of people that are interested, which is exciting for us because it's cool. Like, you get to work with lots of different people.
I love it when we sometimes get couples come on, so they'll have everyone's got different strengths and weaknesses, and I love it when the girl is better than because the bloke will be better at like or other things, but then there's always things that that the girl is going to then nail him on. And I like rubbing blokes up the wrong way when that sort of thing. But it's cool because it's nice. Me and my wife did a session on Saturday or Sunday where like we trained together. We'd have never trained together if we were lifting weights because we're just not comparable. But when we're just moving home, she only needs to be strong enough for her 50 kilos or whatever she weighs, and I need to be strong enough for my 80, 90 kilos, whatever I weigh. And I just think that's a really nice, another nice aspect to it.
And I think, like you touched on it earlier, I really, really just hearing you guys talk and just following you guys over the months and what have you is, and it ties into what we do is like being so human, like it really makes it tangible to people and across different spectrums, because like you said, if you guys are doing it and you're just normal blokes out there, and that gives me that little bit of hope, like maybe I could just do it as well. And that appeals to so many different people, like you really hit the nail on the head about the gymnastics. I mean, you see these gymnastics guys and girls, and it just seems like that's just impossible. It's not even not even in my ballpark, And then, like when you see you guys, you go like, yeah, we can do that. That's pretty cool. And it's not in my ballpark, but we were also just like, and I really, really appreciate that from you guys. And I think that's why you've got that nice cross section of people that follow you guys. And, I think that's really super cool. And I'd like to also touch on that, Tim, about you mentioned about the potential of people. And, obviously you worked with people with physical disabilities and at a very high level. And, when we talk about injuries and stuff, I mean, that's really to another level. So how did that help you get into this, or can you just talk a little bit more about how the progression from that and just seeing the potential in people with real disabilities?
Yeah, for sure. I've had I won't go into too much of the detail, but working with people with disabilities has been part of my life for quite a long time. And it just so happened that when I finished my strength and conditioning qualifications, I needed to get my professional accreditation. And to do that, you have to submit a case study of an athlete that you've worked with. At the time, I was working in sports development, and there was another guy called Richard Whitehead who was in the same office, double leg amputee, so through the above knee amputee, and he was a marathon runner. So I said to him, "Oh, Rich, I need an athlete. Do you know anybody who's interested, or are you interested?" And he came back and he's like, "Yeah, I'm definitely looking to try and take my training to another level. I'd be keen to work with you." So I walked into the gym, fresh-faced strength and conditioning coach. I got all these books, and I think I flipping know about training now. And then you go, actually, now I've got a guy who's not got any legs. So what do we do with that? Because now we can't squat, and the whole of our basis of our functional movement assessments would be around squatting patterns or lunging patterns in the most part. So all of a sudden you kind of throw the book out the window and go, I'm going to have to come up with this a little bit differently. And I remember sitting there trying to write his program, and I said to my wife, I was like, I don't know if I can do this. And she just said to me, just take a step back. You're losing sight of what it is you're trying to do. Just get started. So I went into the gym program, and it just started to just evolve. And I loved the problem-solving nature of it. Like, it's complex. Like, you could genuinely put me in a room with somebody who's missing a leg and Usain Bolt and said, which one do you want to train? And I don't care what level that arm amputee is at. I'll train the arm amputee because it's difficult and because other people can't do it because, well, they can't, but they don't know how to, or they've not got experience. And it's, I don't know, like, people have slandered me for that, saying it's easy to train Usain Bolt to run 1/10 quicker, but it's just not that interesting to me. I would rather go and solve a puzzle. And that means that you then have to be very dynamic and flexible about the training environment. How are you going to recreate positions? How are you going to manipulate the environment to be able to actually train? So I had a guy that I was working with the Paralympic swim team who doesn't have any hands. So how do we need to do some body strength. So we'll clip him into things. We use straps. We kind of,
give him a shout out.
Andy Mullen. Yeah, he's a great guy. And it's and you just start to to see training a little bit differently. And it doesn't take long before you realize the potential of what some of the guys can do. I mean, Rich is a great example of that. So over about a year and a half, I was training him, and he got his. When I first started with him, he'd just gone under 3 hours for a marathon, so he'd gone 2:57, I think, in Boston. And our next focus competition was Chicago, and he did another one the year after, and he got his marathon time down to 2:42, and his half marathon time was 1 hour 14. That's shifting.
Sure. Wow.
To see like London by an able-bodied runner will be running roughly, say, 2:05, something like that. That's something close to the record. Rich was knocking 2:42 on prosthetics. So this guy was a great athlete. But then he found out that London was going to host the Paralympic Games, and he wanted to be part of it, but there wasn't a classification for him as a leg amputee in the marathon, only as arm amputees. So he switched to do a bit of track work, and then did a few meets, managed to get a qualification time, and then got selected to go to the World Championships in Auckland in 2010, that must have been. And he won it. He won the 200 meters, T42, just straight off the bat. It was ugly. Like if you watch the video back compared to how he runs now, he looks like a muscle car, like a Dodge Charger or something. He comes around back end slipping out, and he puts the gas down. He's got a finish like no one's ever seen before. He could from last place to first place in the space of about 80 meters. And so he now, over the years, again, he went and won gold in London, won gold in Rio. So he holds the record for a leg amputee over a marathon distance, and he also holds a world record for 200 meters on the track. Show me any other athlete in the world that can do those things. You're not going to, like Mo Farah's not going to do that. Usain Bolt's not going to do that. So you talk about potential of what these guys can achieve, and you learn a lot from them, the mindset that they go into it. And I told one of the first things I told Rich to do is take your prosthetic off and stand on one leg, and no one had ever done that before. And it's this sensitivity around disability. If someone in a wheelchair comes into the gym, the first thing I say to him, I was like, "Can you get out of your chair?" "Yeah, I can." "Okay, show me," because I need to see how you move. And it's not being afraid to have those conversations and challenge them. But Rich doesn't just get good at balancing on one leg; he gets great at it. It's that mindset. It's the same thing, performance mindset. Flicks into some different kind of mode, and he just absolutely excels at everything that he applies his effort to. So I'm very fortunate to have worked in that environment with those athletes, and went to Rio as part of the British team last year. And yeah, just an incredible privilege to be part of it.
I think working with those, like when you talked a bit about injuries and mindsets and things, but like when you go in the gym with like someone like Rich or someone like Andy, and you go, like, you say, "Can you try this, Andy?" And he's got no hands. He didn't go, "Oh, I ain't got any hands." He goes, "I'll try." Like it's always like, "Rich, do you want to try doing this without your legs on?" "Yeah, I'll have a go and see what it's like, and we'll find a way to make it right." Which does, it does bring it home to you sometimes that actually, like, we need to stop complaining about like my little sore shoulder that hurts a little bit or whatever. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. I remember watching first of all the Olympics, but then the Paralympics at the Olympics in London. And the slogan or the catchphrase was "Here come the superheroes" on ITV. And I must say, I watched every single one of those like hour-long documentaries that they had on the people, and I've never been more inspired by somebody, and they all had such amazing stories and had to come over just incredible hardship. And one thing that you touched on now as well, Tim, is like that Paralympians also, they're just normal humans at the end of the day, so they don't mind talking about their disability, but people are scared to do it. So yeah, I mean, I don't actually know what the question is, but I mean, I just find those people the most motivating out of everybody. So you must,
in what we are, like, we're all like that. We've all got some things that we maybe deal with in different ways, and yes, there's bigger and smaller barriers, but ultimately, like, Rich was born without any legs. That's who he is. And I think it's different if someone's coming from trauma. So if someone's had an experience in, let's say, for example, in conflict or in the military, getting used to living with a disability when you've not had one is a different process. Rich grew up with it, and they're not. It's not to say it's any lesser. It's just a different process or a stage of life that you got to go through, where you got to accept that maybe you're a little bit different to everybody else, and that when you're running around the playground, you're running on prosthetics or whatever. But interestingly, when Rich signed up to run a marathon, when he first started, and he was going to run on what he calls cups, but they're basically little rubber hard socks, plastic socks, sorry, that he would put at the end of his prosthetic. So he was going to run on his knees, and he was set out to go to New York to run 26 miles on his knees. And it was 2 weeks before the marathon that a prosthetics company found out that he was going to do it, and they gave him some prosthetics to go and do it.
Wow.
So we talk about what people are prepared to do to achieve something that they want to achieve. And we think, you look at the Paralympic athletes and go, well, what does it mean to have a barrier? And like put that in perspective. Actually, what it comes down to is a desire and a mindset about wanting to achieve something, and you need to work out how to do that, whatever that is for your circumstances. Those guys just have very hard-hitting stories, some of them, about what they've achieved and been through to do that.
Oh man, it's so powerful, and I just think it just brings that theme back. And you hear it so often, just being so grateful for like the stuff that we can just do. And I complain about not being able to do a muscle up or whatever, and like just harden up, man, just harden up and get on with it. So just that's such an amazing story, and I agree with you, Gareth, that I've just never been more inspired, and I've been lucky enough to work with a few people that have got disabilities and in sports as well, and it's just literally the most inspiring people, because they don't see it any different. Like you said, just get on with it and do it. And what are you whinging about, kind of thing,
Yeah, we've touched on it a couple of times again, like, looking at people and going, well, they're just blokes, just normal people, and saying that about us. And we certainly think that we're like normal people, but I do the same when you look at anyone. We're all just flipping humans, and you look at Usain Bolt and go, he's just another bloke. Like, he's got some great like genetics, and he's and this, that, the other, and like, I'm not saying I can beat him in a race, but like, I look at him and think he's a bloke, I think that's like, whether you guys with your podcast, like a really healthy way for people to, not put people on pedestals, like congratulate people for the things they do, but like, we're all just blokes, like we're all just the same, blokes or women. Joey, we're all just the same, like there isn't any difference between us.
Yeah, exactly. Guys, I'm just conscious that Dave, you need to drive to more zine, and I think you got to leave in about like 5 minutes or so. Just one thing before we wrap up, and moving on from the Paralympian stuff, which I would definitely like to go in again at a later stage. But you guys said that you do all the replying to your people on social media, etc. What about all this content that you put together so far? Like, I mean, your website, your ebooks, all these things are actually like a really, really professional standard. So is this something you guys do, or do you get some help with that?
Tim Stevenson. This is the thing. This is one of the things I love most. That when people go, like, you say stuff like that means a lot to us, because it's like we sometimes refer to ourselves as a couple of pirates. Like, we're just we know a bit about strength and conditioning and whatnot, and we're qualified and accredited and insured and all that sort of market. But it's like we have fun with what we're doing. But when we were going to start the school, we came up with a name because. When we came up with the name School of Calisthenics, it was like, we want to teach people something. We don't just want to show them, we want to teach them, and all that whole coaching ethos and stuff. And Tim was one of the things that Tim said, and it does ring in my ears like quite often, that he goes, if we're going to do this, we're going to change the game. It's like, go away from what other people in calisthenics are doing and just like showing off, and we're going to actually bring some science into this baby. And one of the things that Tim is like, he's a perfectionist, and if something doesn't look right, like, it ain't happening.
Much to the annoyance of everybody else.
But the end product that you see. So I remember sitting down with the guy that we didn't do our own web design. We got someone made our website. And we're not that skilled techie wise, but then all the, we don't take our own photos. We've got the guy that does our photography. But everything else that you see is just like stuff that we're doing and putting together. And it's, it's just a lot of hard work.
We're fortunate that we've got a team that's come together to do it. So I like writing, and the perfectionist side of me, I like graphics, and it's a little bit, I wouldn't say it's a hobby, but it's just something that I quite enjoy playing around. I'm quite visual, so I like to be creative in that sort of in that sort of way. So that's really kind of my strength and pulling together some of what I've learned over the years about training. We've got Dave was the first rugby player on social media. Is that right?
Well, I mean, when Twitter came out, a friend of mine was like, "Mate, let's get on this," and I was like, "What is Twitter? Oh, this just looks like rubbish." But yeah.
But you really got into sort of
it,
using that. So Dave is like leads on that side of it now, and we've got another guy called Ben, who's we refer to him as a headmaster, but he actually works for a sports PR comms agency and sports management, and he takes care of a lot of the business side of stuff for us. But the sort of I like to talk about like being in the trenches on the coalface of in coaching in front of athletes in the gym, but from a business perspective, like. We do all the stuff that you guys see. All the written content is my written content, supported by Dave, and the marketing and the channels that it goes out with. That's Dave's stuff, and Tomo and Ben. Sorry, and it's so yeah. We were very fortunate. That's one lesson that I've learned, having been involved in a couple of business over the years, is that team to be able to actually do something like this is so important. There's no way if it was me by myself that will be anywhere near what we're currently able to do. And we take time over stuff. We sell ebooks and people download a PDF, and we've bought a few to see what they're like, and they're like, I'll be disrespectful, but they're not great. Like it's literally a Word document that someone's gone save as PDF, and the content's not even that good, but they're charging it. So when I said that I want to change the game, that was literally like going out, and that's still the major focus. If we're going to do something, we're going to try and do it to the highest standard that we can, and it doesn't go out until we're happy with it, I'm happy with it, which is a bit after everybody else is happy with it.
Cool.
Yeah, we get that. Anything that you see is just stuff that we're doing. I think some people, I love it when someone's got a complaint, or no, I don't get a lot of complaints. Someone's got like a query about a workshop or a program, or they've got something. They send a message, and then a reply it might be on Instagram or Facebook or whatever, and you go, okay, no worries. Like just email me. It's david@schoolcalisthenics.com, and then the email comes through. Hi, I was talking to one of your team that looks after your social media. Said to email this person, and I'm like, yeah, it's Jacko. That was me. The guy that was doing the thing. That's us. And I was replying on Facebook and replying to your email, but that's just yeah.
No,
so while you're discussing that, maybe you could just give us a little bit more. Like, where can people what is your preferred contact point, and where can people find more information about you guys?
Yeah, so you can find us at schoolofcalisthenics.com. We've got all of our training guides, and the free beginners ebook is available on there as well. So if people are interested in getting into calisthenics, then that's a great starting point. It gives you a flavor of what we're about and how we coach and the sort of things that we're going to talk about, exercises. We put out stacks of content on YouTube. There's loads of free stuff on there that you can just go and watch videos and exercises. We have a Challenge Tuesday, different bodyweight challenges, which is a bit of fun, lessons, how-tos. And then there's the social media channels of Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Instagram and Facebook are probably the ones that we have most of the engagement on in terms of the sort of where we put the content. So just search School of Calisthenics on any of those channels and you'll find us. And get in touch, guys. We're genuinely we've touched on a couple of times, but it is us at the end of the mobile phone or the end of the screen or whatever it is that you're using.
Yeah, my mobile is actually on the website because you have to feel like the payment thing. You have to have.
Don't tell them that.
I know. Well, I try to get a phone call. There's someone from America keeps ringing me, but I don't dare answer it because it's going to cost me loads of money on my mobile from America. I get phone calls. Yeah, we've also got a podcast as well, so it'd be cool to share that. It'd be great if we can put in the show notes, like just the link to the podcast and the link to the free guide. If we can do that, then that'd be people to access those two things. And if they want to find us elsewhere, they can have a search on social.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we'll share everything, in the show notes, and also on our social media too. And just basically. Just kind of want to end it off to say thanks to you boys for pretty much being just such inspiring guys, and you've actually really motivated me as well now. I am definitely going to try and master some of this calisthenics exercises that you guys do. I'll also be buying definitely your ebooks because I actually quit gym about 6 months ago and started doing yoga. So for me, this is going to be a great progression. But
so what do you want to work on? What's the goal? I'm going to pin you down. Yes.
My first goal is I want to learn how to do a press to handstand. That's my first one.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm gonna I'll set that as like maybe to do that by December. Is that achievable?
Without knowing where you were currently at with your hand balancing ability, but hand balancing is one of those things that takes time. But yeah, potentially, if you already got a little bit down that journey, then for sure it all depends on the starting point. But yeah, 3 months is not it's not unrealistic.
Okay, awesome, cool. All right. Hold me to that, okay?
But
yeah, just finishing off there, like I said, we just wanted to say a massive thank you. Like I said, you guys are a huge inspiration. You clearly have just worked yourself like really, really hard, and you now are, some guys that like everybody looks up to. So thanks for joining us on the podcast, and we really do look forward to going deeper into some more stuff at a later stage, hopefully on another podcast. And we can hopefully also have a bigger following then, and we can share you guys with all of our listeners.
It's great. Like, thanks for having us, guys. And again, we really like the ethos of what you guys are building and talking about. And it's great to be involved in that and share a little bit of time with you guys. And I wish you guys all the best with what you're doing, because I think it's cool. So I hope it goes well.
Really appreciate it, guys. You guys have really been amazing, and I just know you're going to really inspire, like Gareth said, myself and Gareth and lots of other people. And I've got to just add, in that podcast in the future, far, far away, I'm going to have to ask about your trip to Australia, because all our Australian listeners are obviously going to want to know more about that. So, and I totally forgot to ask you about Australia.
I need to do a face-to-face podcast, don't we?
Yeah, we'll come and visit you.
Yeah, good stuff, man.
Awesome.
All right, guys.
Cool
Thank
stuff.
you so much.
Thanks a lot, guys.
Thanks a lot, boys. So